man.
I love you, black 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 man.
Legging with a white girl, Baywatch. I'ma keep shooting till the bullets all gone, nigga. I don't really care who say stop. There's 4 niggas walking up, and it's just me. Now it's just 3. Now it's just 2. Now it's just me.
For all you chocolate men out there who said it was okay to be that fine. Got it, buddy. That's sexy. So sweet. Wonderful personalities. Strong. Tough. We won't talk about that one.
Good afternoon, black men. Check in. I'm Booty Bree, and I got a lot of white girls looking for you. Hi, can I order my dinner? Yes. Well, I was looking for black men, but for some reason I don't see it on the menu.
I do a boyfriend haul. So this is the one that I have. I met him in 2014, but he wasn't on the market yet. So in 2016, he was on the market, and I decided to see if it was a good investment for me. However, the timing wasn't really right, so it wasn't until the beginning of 2018 that I purchased this one. I don't know the exact month or day that I purchased this one, but it was in the beginning of 2018.
Purchased this crazy as hell.
Fetishization is the act of making someone an object of sexual desire based on an aspect of their identity. In this day and age, it is not uncommon for a person to have dating preferences, and while on the surface these may seem benign and complementary, often these preferences are fetishes. For people of color, and especially black people, the fetishization of their race is not a new phenomenon.
Winston is sexier. And even worse news for white men, they say that he's better in bed. So, is that why white women prefer black men?
The skin.
The skin?
Oh, it's so lovely. Black skin against white skin.
What do you mean skin? I've got lovely skin.
No, not like black man's skin.
Well, what's the difference in black men's skin,
Well,
then?
if they look after it, it's all soft. It's like chocolate.
They're so physically gorgeous. But I also
It's
think
a physical thing.
black men are definitely better in bed. They treat you right, they take their time over you, where a white man won't. They're too quick to get there and get it over with.
At one point in time, black features were seen as undesirable, whereas now they are not just seen as beautiful, but above human. Whether it be something as small as white people wearing dreadlocks, or something larger and race-related, like cuckoldry, or even how the naturally bigger build of black men is a reason for people to fetishize us on one hand, and then another reason for others to fear us on another. Racial fetishization comes in many shapes and forms, with the most popular one being the stereotype that black men have much larger penises in comparison to men of other races. This is only reinforced by various things people consume throughout their lives, such as TV, film, and pornography. And while sometimes it's difficult to understand why racial fetishization is problematic, for far too long, the fetishization of black men has existed on the sidelines of conversations about race, identity, and sexuality. The adult entertainment industry is the cause of many deeply troubling and sensitive issues that have long persisted in the shadows of modern society, which include the trafficking of humans, a lack of worker safety on set, the involvement of underage actors, and the fetishization of certain groups, like black men. The fetishized, racist representation of black men in adult entertainment is a subject that demands attention, for buried within its explicit content lies the implicit seeds of harmful stereotypes that perpetuate biases. Such a complex topic, in my opinion, cannot be done justice through words alone. So, in July, I headed to the Bomb Factory Art Foundation, which is an artist-led, non-profit charity founded in 2015 that serves as an independent space for contemporary art. At the Bomb Factory, I was lucky enough to have a conversation with London-based artist Billy X. The exhibition features a range of scenes of men and women, both black and white, engaging in a wide range of sexual acts with an element of satire, yet a story buried in each.
Porn is literally its own thing, and it's something I'm glad I haven't touched in a long while. But it is just 2D. Do you know what I'm saying? And you know what? It's weird. 'Cause I don't want to say it's completely grotesque, because it's something that I used to indulge in, and then there is a certain art in everything, but you need to be in on the joke sort of thing. Yeah. So if you're not conscious, I mean, there's guys on there, I remember, like, you can tell they're probably just come from prison or whatever, and they're doing this thing, and you know what I'm saying? You know, their job is to sling it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? For as hard and as long as possible. I mean, obviously, it's a bit of a fairy tale because it's made up, isn't it? It's like it's made to look a certain way. They shoot things at a certain angle. But I guess maybe to do with like the narrative, you know, it's power. It's like, you know, there's so many like there's the cuckolding videos where it's like the submissive or the man who's got this bull for his wife, and you know he's nymphomaniac white. You can't be satisfied only if she's got 5 black men in a room or anything like that. Do you know what I'm saying? And I guess it's the mystery, isn't it? It's like the mystery. And it's funny because it kind of puts us on the outside of society sort of thing. We're still seen as this, I don't think it's bad to say animal in this sexual sense. As a black man, I still think with this kind of animal, hybrid animal, you can almost say engineered animal if you add maybe historical things onto it, the slavery aspect and how you're socialized in slavery, how that trickles down.
Here, Billy raises a good point. The way that pornography portrays black men reduces them to the only part of them that is useful to the job that they are doing. The adult entertainment industry uses a variety of overt yet subliminal techniques to fetishize the existence of and reinforce stereotypes about black men. The first technique is racialized language and the use of it to demean the black actor. Some popular racialized terms like BBC reduce black men to nothing more than their genitals and implies that their sole purpose and value comes from their sexual capabilities. For example, a buck is a black man who is just for casual sex with women. So describing black men like this will rub off on non-black watchers and even black watchers too. As we watch black men use their female scene partners for casual sex, devoid of any emotion, we become desensitized to it. Then it becomes the status quo. And then it's expected of us by both outsiders and our own people. The term buck especially has fetishist undertones as it plays on the term buck breaking, the act of white men raping black male slaves as a way of taming them. Another technique used by porn to fetishize black men is the creation of the positive stereotype. The myth of the BBC is by far the most generally known example, which in comparison to other terms is especially damaging to black men who aren't porn stars. This is because, unlike other forms of racial fetishism, it has intersectionality with some of the more competitive aspects of toxic masculinity, such as proficiency in the bedroom, and provides the black man with a false sense of pedestalization.
When I say some people are dedicated to the bit, I don't just mean the people who are fetishizing. Some people play up these things, right? Think of like black hyper-conservative people. Think of like, you know, the people who perform minstrelsy, people who get on like TikTok and stuff, chomping down on watermelons, or who call themselves dancing gorillas. Think about stuff like that. Some people are dedicated to the bit. Like, and I mean that. It will fuck up your mind if you don't practice like freeing yourself from a lot of the ways that society like categorizes and fetishizes you. Like a lot of people feel reduced down to body parts. Some people feel like they have to cut off specifically like black men. And I'm going to say specifically, like a lot of black men are forced to completely sever themselves from their emotion space because they are only viewed as just as good as their body is viewed as just as good. Like it's that simple. Like it has us constantly questioning our worth and our value as people and reducing ourselves down to things that often are outside of our control or things that are just part of human nature.
To a black man, and especially young black boys, the compliment of being told you have a BBC masquerades itself as something to be proud of. So, black men choose to embrace it as a positive stereotype. This could stem from the fact that black men are continuously degraded by society and told that they have no value. But when a non-black person comes along and fetishizes them, it affirms their masculinity and their existence. It tells them that they have worth. That is, however, until you think about what it does to a black man who doesn't have a big penis, a black man who does not fit in.
I am expected to have a big dick. 3, 2, 1, go.
Nobody disagrees. Yo. Yeah, I feel like it's a stereotype. And we know that stereotypes aren't realistic, but I mean, personal encounters, I don't feel like there's leeway. I feel like, okay, that one we're keeping. Like, that's what the general notion is.
I think it gets into the issue of positive and negative stereotypes and how people need to realize that there is no such thing, because what you do is you put people into a box where they're expected to live up to a standard. And I feel like it's over sexualizing black men. You know, you should want to date someone more for the pleasure physically that they can bring to you. And I know I've talked to people personally who will be like, oh, you're lucky you're black. You have a big member. And I'm like, well, I have other things to offer too. Like, I'm well-spoken. I have a good sense of humor. I'm well-traveled. Like, you go straight to like what's underneath my zipper.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my experience a lot of times, especially, you know, meeting different people. That's the expectation. And I just tell them, 2-inch Punisher, you know? Don't expect too much. I'm just joking, but it's I think a lot of people watch a lot of porn too, and that's where it comes from. Like, when you watch a lot of porn, you see, you know, these mandingos and, you know, 10-inch monsters, and they expect that to be reality. And a lot of times it's not, but that's the expectation that they have, so.
The third technique, but by no means the last, is the purposeful world building of porn. Porn is fake, and like all fake things, it requires staging. But because the writing of porn isn't what draws the audience, these scenarios and world building goes ignored. Professional porn performer King Noir was cast as the first black male performer in a porno film produced by American porn studio Asylum. For Noir, this was something to be proud of, but when he realized in the film he would play the role of a janitor, he requested to be cast in a different role. This is because, while not explicitly motivated by race, it is questionable why in the film that King Noir was in, he had to play the role of a janitor, while in Asylum's other films, the white performers have more respected jobs like doctors and nurses. His request to change his role was denied. It's known by black men that scenarios in porn perpetuate stereotypes about them, like calling them thugs. However, something that isn't as discussed is how porn satirizes the trauma of black men by creating sexualized parodies of real events which black men and people suffer from. For example, the slave memoir 12 Years a Slave, which was later turned into a film, was parodied by the aptly named porn company Hot Mess Entertainment into the adult film 12 Inches a Slave, which features quote-unquote 5 white chicks ravaged by big black bucks. The specific choice to satirize the transatlantic slave trade, as wild as it is, unintentionally takes the fetishization of black men full circle. So far, we've discussed the fetishization of black men in modern times, a topic that we will come back to later. But before we continue, I think we must segue and look back into the roots of the fetishization of black men during slavery. Slavery was a labor-fueled economy where black bodies were fetishized for many different reasons, one of which is the enigma of the black body and how Europeans saw African traditions as inherently sexual because it was foreign to their Western views.
Prior to the slave ship's arrival in the Americas, European explorers wrote endlessly on how aroused, fascinated, and repulsed by the savage African and their traditional practices they were. Traditions expressed by cultural dress, polygamy, polygyny, dance, and in religious traditions made Europeans believe that Africans were promiscuous and devilishly sexual. A European explorer by the name of William Smith penned that African women and femmes were hot constituted. Constitutions that were then essential to the establishment of the slave trade itself.
Black women were seen as sex objects to be used by the white man to have their way with, and also as concubines who were expected to churn out more babies for later enslavement. Then you had black men who were seen as functional, sexually aggressive, and otherly. This is a key reason why during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, there were human zoos that displayed people from Africa, Asia, and other non-European backgrounds. In these zoos, black women and men were made to wear minimal clothing and were placed in artificial exotic settings meant to mimic their natural habitat. This portrayed black men as animalistic and a threat to the innocence and vulnerability of white femininity, which needed the protection of white men. From the eyes of the white man, this was more than enough justification for lynching male slaves.
Slavery existed as both a sexual and labor-fueled economy where the black body was fetishized, exotified, and mystified. While black women were considered as both, sorry for this word, breeders and concubines who energetically respond to anyone's sexual advances. Black men, on the other hand, had voracious sexual appetites that threatened the sanctity of the white feminine.
For most women at the time, this sentiment about the primal nature of black men was true, so they chose to distance themselves from the black men out of fear. However, for some women at the time, needing protection from the white man was nothing more than another rule to put women in a box, and so they started to rebel. Suddenly, the otherness and animalisticness of black men were now desirable, and taboo relations between black male slaves and their female white owners began, before becoming more sadistic and more sadistic as time went on, reflected on by Civil War abolitionist Commander Captain J. Richard Hinton in the following quote. Due to the hierarchical nature of society, not even white women are immune from the oppression of the white man, as after all, he is on top. Initially, the white women at the time only focused on them being underneath the white man. However, as white women began to form relations with their black male slaves, they began to realize that they were not at the bottom, and in fact were on top of a whole race. And soon they started to exercise their newfound power in the same way that that same power was exercised over them by their husbands.
But why did white women have relationships and sexual desires for black male slaves when they knew it was considered illegal? Well, the motives behind these women's decisions to engage in such relationships likely varied from situation to situation. Some may have been driven by boredom or unfulfilled desires, seeking a sense of fulfillment in their lives. Yet when we delve deeper, we find a compelling argument that these encounters might have offered a way for these women to reclaim a measure of power that often eluded them in other aspects of their lives. For example, white women could establish sexual relationships with black male slaves but could still keep them under their power. That was not the case with their husbands, who had authority over their wives. In this way, white women were feeling authority they never had, so sexual relations with black male slaves grew. Historian Elizabeth Fox Genovese points out that despite efforts to control female desires, they still existed, and white women, much like their male counterparts, engaged in relationships outside of or before marriage, although less frequently. It's worth noting that these relationships might not have been as frequently noticed or documented as they occurred. While the transgressions of white men were perhaps expected, the notion of a white woman having a relationship with a black man might not have been as readily considered. In cases where suspicions arose, an upper-class woman could exploit societal stereotypes and claim rape to protect herself, shifting blame onto the black man.
However, we do to this day have records of such occurrences happening, like in this extract from Life of a Slave Girl, where author Harriet Jacobs mentioned how slave planters' daughters would take advantage of male slaves. This is not to suggest that female sexual abuse of their black male slaves wouldn't have happened if women had enjoyed a higher station in society, but instead to show that innocent-looking white women use sex in tandem with their second-best position in society as a means of domination and control over black men, even if they were the one to assume the dominant position during the sexual act. This concept is alive and thriving today in the kink known as race play.
I think we answered it because it's yeah, you're not in charge of that situation as much as you might think you want to be. It's their game, and the thing is, it's something that I have considered, and I think part of that, you know, having relations with the white women. So I've not been in a race play scenario, but I think you're sort of race playing anyway. Do you know what I'm saying? To a degree, Can't remember. See, it's not going to be a quote, but it's something I've heard or read, and it was about, you know, the difference between having relations with a black woman, if you're a black man, and having relations outside of you. There's fetishism taking place. There's something that can't be connected. It's something, I don't know, I guess it's coded into your DNA or something like that. And it's not to say that you couldn't have, you know, obviously it's your girlfriend, it's love and whatever, but, you know, can we separate that aspect from you right now in 2023? Can we separate that aspect?
This concept is alive and thriving in a kink called race play. Race play is a form of sexual roleplay where the racial backgrounds of the sexual partners are used to create a power imbalance through the use of slurs, scenario creation, and references to racial history. For the most part, race play is a taboo act that your average Joe wouldn't have heard of. However, one type of race play has managed to get into the public eye: cuckoldry. Cuckoldry is defined as the act of watching your partner engage in intercourse with another person, and while this isn't explicitly a race thing, it's safe to say that a large majority of cuckoldry videos involve white men seeing their wives be pleased by black men. There are two roles involving some form of masculinity when in the cuckold scenario: the white man and the black man's. From the white man's perspective, the dynamic between himself, the black man, and his wife is a reflection of an internalized sexual inadequacy, where he may believe that conforming to racial stereotypes is the only means of satisfying his partner. This defeatism is ironic, as even if the white man has a good job, a fancy car, and a nice house, he believes that he will never be able to please his wife as much as a black man can, and will consider himself a failure, even if succeeding more in every other category of life than the black man.
I've spoken to some guys, like, this is like, my thing was using chat rooms a lot.
Yeah, I remember.
Or using a chat forum and stuff. So, I've spoken and had discussions, and sometimes sexual discussion about this thing, and it is literally, it's the primary myth, which is the size. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The primary thing, that's the primary thing, you know, and being able to just, you know, obliterate or match up to her, do you know what I'm saying, to the females, what she wants. I think he probably needs to feel inferior.
Yeah. Just
playing at it. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe there's some sort of psychological evolution there, and it's probably has something to do with porn and adult content, you know, because it's still a bit of a mystery what a black man's body is like. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's still a bit of a mystery. I wonder what it's like to be like this, to have this sort of equipment, and, you know, there's this edge to you. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? You're living on the fringe. But like, look, these are gross stereotypes. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a type of black man that they probably want to be with their wife. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just jealous desire of.
Yeah.
And they use things that to us are quite traumatic, you know, things like, you know, being profiled and being immediately seen when you walk into a room a certain way.
Yeah.
They see that as quite powerful.
Yeah.
Because often you see small, you know, skinny white guys who want to see their wives get all sorts. But yeah, it's quite weird.
Do you know what? I think it's just where we're at now. Anything's possible. Any experience can be had. I think it's just where we're at. We're just totally just peeling it back layer by layer. I mean, I'm sure there is a history there. So I do remember, like, I was like on Wiki, like looking at the cuckold on Wiki and definitions and stuff like that. So like I'm just, I know there's a history there, right? But I think now because you've got access and you can see it performed and you can see it demonstrated, it's like people just sort of tap into these things and they want to experience that. But I would say I've not pondered it, but there probably is a reason why, you know, why would you want to do that? Because you can't imagine a black man doing that.
Yeah, true.
Do you know what I'm saying? You can't really imagine it. You can't imagine anyone in your immediate thinking, oh, this would be. But then what I will say is this is an aspect of people that you just don't know. You know, you don't know who are the swingers. You don't know who are the people that you know are into same sex sometimes or whatever. You don't know. And sex is it's like very private, personal thing. You know, look what's going on at the minute. You know, you think you're being private and whatnot. Do you know what I'm saying? You think you've got your own little world going on where you become something else. A lot of the time from who the people I've spoken to, they say it's, you know, it is that power, it's the danger. It's this sort of animalizing thing. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not our humanity. It's everything below that. It's everything below our consciousness. Do you know what I'm saying? Us just being strong and having this hunger as well. I think that probably that hunger, that virility, you know what I mean? That sex drive, that's what they want. They want that expressed over their partner, don't they? Over and over again. You know.
Yeah, seen as either above human or subhuman.
So there is a power thing in that. It's still that, we said it earlier, it's a power thing. I'm going to act submissive, but actually I've facilitated all of this. You know.
Yeah, true. Which affects the black man as well.
It could also be a bit of self-deprecation and, you know, some sort of white guilt thing.
Yeah.
Who knows? That might play itself out because I do think depending on who you are and where you live, how your life's going, and then you watch the news, it's just brown and black people suffering.
Yeah.
On a daily basis. You've got more than them and whatever. And I think, you know, maybe there's a way to sort of externalize it and deal with it sexually, you know, which is it's an interesting concept actually, you know, having a sexual answer to deal with your own position in life. You know. This is kind of like this self-flagellation kind of thing.
Then you have the black man's perspective. When engaging in race play, usually as a dominant force, it can stem from a place of reclamation on the black man's part. Because as black men, we are always reminded that we live in a society where white dominates black. So for some, the idea of reversing the roles to where black dominates the white is appealing. However, this is far from the truth, as it is the white person who is still the dominant force, even if they are the submissive one sexually.
Cuckoldy bullshit, right? Where there's a white couple who, you know, wants to get a big black man to go fuck the white wife. And so then the white guy jerks off in the corner. It's a whole thing. Even in that situation, even though in a way the white couple is indeed dominating this black man, this black man can kind of convince himself that he's in a position of power. He's in a position where he's sticking it to the white man.
The white person or persons are using the black man as a toy to play out their fantasy and don't view him as anything more than a subject of their desire within the context of their fetish. In fact, the couple could even hold bigoted views about black people which the fetish itself often stems from. However, the black man often believes that he is subverting the couple's preconceived notions about him by making him feel like he's the one turning the tables on them. But this is nothing more than a coping mechanism to allow the black man to maintain some sense of black dignity by tricking himself into thinking that he's sticking it to the white man.
I mean, it's funny because I saw, so this is an adult film, and I saw the attempt to flip it on its head and it still didn't work.
Yeah.
So you're sort of like being degraded to a white woman, but there's something about when you watch it, she's still in power in the situation, and it's only a microcosm of reality, right? There's still this hierarchy.
Yeah.
White man, white woman, black man, black woman. So it's still this thing, right? There's still this sort of, you're not in charge of that situation at all. You can have all the power and the strength, and you can spew as much vitriol as you want at the person, at the woman. But there's something about it socially. That she's
at the top. That once the shoot's over, she's gonna be
beyond that. If something happens in that scene, right, she's not for it. That guy's gonna be in shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Which is the other aspects of the adult entertainment, but he's gonna be in shit.
Yeah. Which is
with full prejudice of the law as well. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So it's not, especially where sex is concerned. And
however, at the end of the day, race play is still a sexual act carried out behind closed doors. So whether you like it or not, it's their business. However, deconstructing the dynamics behind the king does reveal the complexities between relationships and identity. As society continues to evolve in its understanding of identity, attraction, and power, these discussions contribute to the ongoing conversation about how we navigate the multifaceted intersections of race and desire. An incel, short for involuntary celibate, is a member of an online community of young men who consider themselves unable to attract women. This typically comes with a barrage of hostile and extremist views. While most of these views are aimed at women, I've noticed more and more that incels often target men of other races for a range of different reasons. However, none are quite as targeted by incels as the black man is. In this photo, you see 3 black men lining up to have their way with a white woman. This plays off an incel's irrational fear that white women leave loving relationships with white men for cheap sexual thrills with black men. So much so that the saying, white men have black dick on their mind more than women, is a widely held belief among black people in black spaces on the internet. If the incel's irrational fear sounds familiar, it's because it's the same rhetoric that I mentioned earlier when talking about how slave owners justified lynchings of slaves by painting black men as purely sexual beings who are out to defile the innocent white femininity. This fear is so ingrained within the incel community that some of them even make staged videos to garner hate towards and further this sentiment about black men.
So I got this hidden camera online. There's no way she's going to find this camera. I left the house and literally parked down the street to try and catch her. I recorded the live stream on my phone until this happened. What was that? Who TF is that? You have got to be kidding me. Complete waste of 6+ years of my life. Thanks, Ashley.
Negative portrayal of an everyday white man who gets his life ruined by an alpha black man. fetishization of the black man comes from a deep-seated attraction. That to them, the idea of a big muscular black man taking their wife from them is just as much of a fear as it is a king. Attraction is a deeply ingrained facet of human nature, shaped by a complex interplay of culture, personal experiences, and societal influences. In the realm of attraction, the complex dynamics of genuine appreciation in comparison to twisted fetishization emerge as distinct angles that reflect human desire. While individuals in both groups experience attraction, there exists a critical distinction between those who authentically value black men as unique individuals and those who unknowingly or not reduce them to sexual desirable objects.
And look, you can spot those a mile off, can't you?
Yeah.
How they curated themselves. Do you know what I mean? How they do their hair, what they wear something skin tight. And I remember a girl breaking this down to me. It's like she's never been with a black man. And she was like, right, why would you say that? It's like, oh, the way her hair's done, she doesn't show off certain curves in her body. Like, it was crazy the way she broke it down. Do you know what I'm saying? I think there's obviously exceptions to this rule, because I might like the fact that I might fetishize the fact that she's got no curves. Do you know what I'm saying? So it can happen both ways. But I think, there is this thing where it's like a certain type, that archetypal type of black man and white female, the white female with the bumper, the white female that's got these, these black features. And then you see them with the thuggish road man, do you know what I'm saying? So it's like these things go together like Lego. Yeah. You see these things match up. You might say that you like that energy though, and that's another aspect of it. It's an energy thing, and that's what goes around and around with it. I might like this type of timid, very plain Jane, but I like the fact that I'm black. Do you know what I'm saying? Let me dirty this up a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? It all just sort of plays out. I mean, obviously, when we're deciding, it's a lot of sexual energy initially, and I think that when you said about the fetishism, you can't remove that, so that's always present. The fetishism is present regardless. It doesn't matter what race. Do you know what I'm saying? It doesn't matter what race. I'm sure you've seen a large amount of white males, Asian females.
Loads.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. What is going on there? What is going on there? Yeah. We have to these things. We have to. No, we accept what that's what it is. We accept that dynamic works. Why? It's a broad spectrum, but it exists in pockets around the human race. There are these matchups. There's there are these matchups, and in some backgrounds they're just a little bit more traditional, and they don't. It's very difficult to break in there. African, Asian, a lot harder to break. A lot harder to break through. It's a lot harder to break through there. There probably is a bit of fetishization, because like I said, it doesn't, that aspect of it is kind of like the chemistry. It's like the thing that brings you together initially, and then there's this appreciation of culture and this and that, and I think that's probably would be a signifier of sincerity, is that, okay, what we do extracurricular. Am I, because if you like someone, you end up being concerned with who they are and their background and whatnot, and you partake in it. You're inviting that person into your culture. And there's people that they really engross themselves in it. Do too much sometimes as well. But I think that's like, again, that's a phenomenon, and especially just lucky to be in London, really. Do you know what I'm saying? Where it's, you know, it's a free-for-all, really. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're around so many different backgrounds and nationalities that, there's always going to be this otherness thing. There's always that. There is always that. And, you know, I would say from the black male perspective, these are sisters, aunts, and nieces and all the rest of it. And there is this sort of thing where it's too close. And maybe it's because we was all come over here on a boat and stuff like that. It's like, oh, let me get something from outside. Let me get something, anything else. Do you know what I'm saying?
Again, it feels like forbidden fruit, almost something different than just your usual.
Yeah. The thing is, it's repairing that as well. It's repairing that in the mind, repairing that on the female side, repairing it on the male side. You know.
By examining these dynamics, we aim to gain a deeper understanding of the impact such attitudes have on both the individual and a broader community when talking about interracial relationships and attraction. And as these issues are reflected upon, it serves as a reminder of the essential role that education plays in underscoring the collective's responsibility to dismantle harmful stereotypes and to recognise the historical context that shapes perceptions. But most importantly, it allows us to foster relationships based on genuine appreciation instead of twisted desire.